Some of you guys are not going to believe me when I say this, but your power is felt by so many more people and so much more strongly than it's ever been felt. I feel like your power is growing so much that people who haven't thought about you in years, even people who have never heard of you, are somehow privy to your energy. I don't know why this is going on right now, because it feels like you've actually maybe been in a season of holding back a little bit, or incubation, or kind of like, I'm getting a behind the curtain energy, like making preparations, not showing everyone what you've been working on or really popping out like that. And yet it feels like in the ethers, people can feel that you're about to blow. I do feel like there's this breakthrough moment we've been edging toward and then going away. And this was a big part of the summer season this year with the Mercury retrograde. And to be honest, I don't just think it's the summer. I feel like this energy is going to continue into the fall and early winter with the Venus and Mars retrogrades, basically from now until the next eclipse season. We're in eclipse season right now. It's going to feel like each time you're kind of feeling ready for that next step, you're being called to take a step back because there's something that you forgot over there. And this is not meant to frustrate you. And I think you know that by now. I think what you're seeing is that even the detours are divinely guided. And even when things don't happen on your timeline or your timetable, even when things don't happen according to plan, you've gained this ability to be flexible but still stand your ground. So you don't just give up and abandon what you're working on, like, oh, I guess it's a sign to quit. It's not like that. But at the same time, you are more adaptable than ever before without abandoning your vision. And I feel like people around you, it's just like in general, like the universe around you can sense that you are ready for these next milestones in your life. And I feel like it's truly because you have detached from pushing for that thing to happen in order to give you a sense of happiness and fulfillment. It's like, you know that your dream, your biggest dream that you could dream, wouldn't give you happiness if internally you were not living in alignment. So I feel like this has been a season where even when things are put on hold or it's unclear when they're going to work out for you, you've really been doing the inner work of, okay, I can't control that, but how can I cultivate my own sense of stability and happiness on a daily basis? How can I find the pleasure in the littlest of things? And I feel like in this process, you have developed this fuel source. Like, I'm getting the word alternative energy. It's almost like you realize that the fossil fuel industry is dead, because it is. But metaphorically speaking, you've realized that the old way of doing things just wasn't really sustainable. I mean, sure, you could keep on going and maybe it would get you from point A to point B. But it's like something in you has identified that there's a much bigger mission that you are a part of. And that if you are to fully expand into this mission, you have to find a renewable source of energy. And your energy has to be in a place of flow where you know when it's time to rest and you know when it's time to push. And I feel like taking a step back or maybe waiting a little bit before diving headfirst into something has given you the power of observation within yourself to know when the right timing is for certain things and to feel where you're at. This has also given you the ability to observe and understand other people around you and how they operate in ways that they might not even be aware of themselves. You have a really strong psychic intuition that has been workshopped throughout the Mercury retrograde in Cancer. But whenever this video finds you, I feel like it's relevant. And I really feel like the month of July was like almost like summer camp for psychic abilities in the collective, where we have had this kind of graduation, like ascension into feeling more comfortable with our intuition and not fearing it. And when she does speak up and says things that maybe we don't want to believe in, but we kind of know are true, we are able to hold that space for her to communicate more than ever. And so the energy that you're in right now, it might feel a little bit unsettled, uncertain. Maybe you've been dealing with some nausea lately. Stomach issues could be relevant. But I feel like you're better prepared than you realize. You are more ready than ever. And it's so funny because I feel like in the past there were these times where you're like, I'm ready already. Like, I'm ready now. And you weren't. You were trying to be. You wanted to be. But I feel like with what you've been going through, you've been caring less about okay, you trust that when you're ready, things will just happen. That's the difference. So instead of focusing so much on, I'm ready, why don't I have this? You're getting curious about the process. Like, okay, I still do desire to see this dream through. I don't want to give up on this dream. But clearly, there's something in me that's resisting it because it's not happening just yet. So it's like you've gotten really used to kind of doing that inner digging work. In the past, it would be something that you would kind of like, oh, this again, the inner work. I don't want to do the inner work. Now it's almost like something you look forward to. And it's kind of like working out, right? Like when you first start working out, you might really dread it. It might be like the worst part of your day. But every time after you do, you feel better. And then eventually, because of that endorphin high that you get, you start to look forward to the workouts, not because they're getting any easier or because, oh, now all of a sudden this is my favorite thing in the world to do. It's just that you start to feel the input-output effect of it and how it's allowing your energy it's kind of like breaking up stuck energy, right? And I feel like you've been doing a lot of spiritual workouts too, but maybe you've been doing physical workouts as well. But yeah, I really feel like there's also something here about releasing, where like in the past, when we would go through these seasons of heavy release, and I think of right now with the South Node about to go into Leo and this Leo new moon eclipse that we had yesterday, it feels very much like a shedding of the old you and limiting beliefs. And I feel like in the past, when you would go through these seasons, it would just be so painful and it would be like heavy. And I feel like there's still an intensity here. But that feeling of heaviness isn't like it used to be. In fact, it might not really be there at all. Because I feel like what you're seeing now is that the things that you're releasing, sure, they might pull on your heartstrings, but you don't feel this desperate sense of, why can't I hold on to this anymore? Like you're not grieving so much. You're celebrating the fact that you feel so much lighter and that you're creating room for new things to come in. And so it's a very interesting difference this time around. Especially with this eclipse being the first one of the series in Leo. I mean, we did have that new moon in Aquarius back in February, which was on the same axis, but we have yet to have an eclipse until now in Leo as a part of this cycle. And I feel like this one is definitely a precursor to a lot more things to come, but it's been setting the stage for what's coming next. And part of setting the stage is clearing off the old set. If you don't want to repeat the same plot, you need to dismantle the environment, right? You can't expect to exist with the same characters, the same props, and the same set and think that it's going to look entirely different. Because no matter how much you try to play around with the narrative and the dialogue, you're still kind of stuck in it. And so this summer has really been about, I'm hearing curtain call, like kind of a final goodbye to who you once were. And it doesn't mean that you're cutting ties and never speaking to people again. I'm not really getting that kind of energy here with this sort of release. It feels like we have evolved past that. And when we do release things, we recognize that they can also have a funny way of coming around full circle. So we don't feel this sense of like desperately clinging to something, because we trust that if it is meant for us, it will find us again. And a lot of that has to do with really owning our power. The way that you are owning your power right now is different than it's ever looked. I feel like a past version of yourself thought that owning your power had to look a certain way. Maybe you felt like you had to really invest a lot into your appearance or into your financial situation or your career or certain milestones. And you felt like by almost chasing these things or really pursuing these things, that would give you a sense of power. And sure, maybe it did give you some attention and therefore some bit of power, but it never felt like something that actually meant something to you. And therefore, it kind of lost its power, ironically, once you got there. And I feel like you've been in a place where maybe some of those things that you once were working really hard toward have actually been taken from you, or you're just not in that same place. And maybe you sometimes look back at your past self and say, sometimes I feel like I wish I could be that person again. But at the same time, you know that if you were that person again, it would be one big eye roll, because you were not living in a state of consciousness like you are now. I mean, maybe you were a little bit conscious of things, but it's really like night and day. And I feel like back then you were really in the dark and you just kind of had your hands out in front of you and were trying to cling on to anything that felt like security and that felt like it would at least get your foot in the door with something. But I think what you've realized is that you don't want to just grasp at anything or put your foot in any door. You want to move more intentionally than you ever have. And part of moving intentionally is figuring out what you are here to create, what you are here to do. There's a big theme and lesson about purpose that is unfolding at this time and for the next 6 months that's going to be really relevant. And part of that purpose, I think, is this kind of departure from anything that is taking up unnecessary space or clouding your glasses from seeing clearly. I think that this next full moon, this next eclipse at the end of the month is also going to have to, it's also going to show us some of the smoke and mirrors stuff that goes on. And we'll get into that in the coming episodes. But something about this new moon eclipse in Leo, I think, has shown a pretty bright spotlight on a version of yourself in the past that you really do not resonate with anymore. And yet, at the same time, you still see parts of that identity that live on now in the present. But it expresses itself in just different ways. And it's not really about how everyone else perceives you or how you see yourself through the eyes of others. I feel like part of this owning your power has really been about, first and foremost, making yourself happy, and in a way that feels divinely aligned with what makes God happy too. And I feel like before there was almost like a divide where you always felt like you had to choose. It was like, okay, I can either choose the safe route or I can choose the risk. And I feel like what you're seeing is that there actually is no choice between those two. They can actually exist in the same path. Meaning that you don't have to choose between something you want to do with your life versus something that's actually going to fund your life, because they can actually be one and the same. And this whole paradigm of having to sacrifice and like, okay, well, if you want to be this, just know that you can't have this too, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too. And something about your energy in these past few months, I feel like slowly, one foot in front of the other, you've been walking this path where it's like, wait, actually I can do both at the same time and I'm making it work. And it's actually called integration. Okay? Because, for example, like some of you guys might have these really big dreams in career, but you also really dream about parenthood and having a child and having a family and like a simple life on a farm or like something like that. And it's like, sometimes I feel like you've been hesitating from taking certain actions because you've been like, okay, well, maybe I just like, some days you wake up and you're like, I just kind of want to like play it small today. I just want to have a simple life. I just want to focus on the basics. And then the next day you wake up and it's like, what am I doing? I want more for my life. I don't want to waste my potential. And so then it feels a little bit like ping-ponging back and forth. And I feel like this new moon eclipse has been like, we're not doing that anymore. You're allowed to be this and you're allowed to be that. Okay? And the more that you try to sometimes be this, but sometimes be that, and you don't accept yourself for the integrated creature that you are, the more that you delay the things you actually want. I think this is also connecting to Mars's transit through Gemini. Mars has recently gone into Cancer. But I feel like Mars in Gemini really showed us that sometimes you have to straddle both worlds. And it doesn't make you two-faced. It doesn't make you distracted or divided in your approach. It can actually make your strategy a lot stronger than the average person who just picks one angle or is just one thing and goes all in on that one thing. And I feel like, especially in the collective, there's an opening right now for people who have a lot of different hats that they want to wear and put on. And there's a lot of this kind of like, I'm getting green light energy. So the color green could be significant, heart chakra. But a lot of green light energy telling you, go forward, being this jack of all trades or jack of many trades, because not everyone can say that they are. And you don't have to subscribe to that. You're either going to be a jack of all trades or a master of none and a master of none, right? Like you can be a jack of all trades and still have that one thing that you truly are a master of and that people know you for. And so that's why I feel like right now there's a lot of limiting beliefs that are being smashed. I heard the song I'm Breaking Dishes by Rihanna, and I got this image of just someone smashing things, right? And it's almost like that feeling of rage, but also like this feels good to just say like, I'm done thinking like this. And there's been so many of this, like, I don't know, I feel like over the past couple of years, but yeah, I don't know, the past few years, especially with like Saturn and Neptune when they were in Pisces and this whole Pisces Virgo eclipse series over the past couple of years, it's been a lot of smoke and mirrors. And in that, there's been a lot of shattered glass of these illusions. And so I feel like you've kind of reached the point in your life where instead of just kind of waiting around for the universe to shatter the illusions for you, it's almost like your intuition has gotten so strong that you can see right away, this is an illusion. This is a limiting belief. This is not something I want to subscribe to. And so you're just kind of taking care of it yourself. So I don't mean this literally that you're actually like smashing things and creating a mess, but it does feel like there's this kind of like, if this kind of way of thinking is this entrenched in society, in my family traditions and generational cycles, then I want no part of it. And I'm willing to make a bold statement to differentiate myself from that kind of existence, because I've seen it go on before and I see how miserable people are when there's so much joy and magic that lies on this planet. And that leads me to another point I wanted to make, is that we are really lacking solid leadership right now, when it comes to, at least on the global scale and what we see in the news. There's so many examples, especially of masculine leadership that has just become so selfish and tyrannical and violent, and greedy. And I feel like some of you guys are feeling this sense of hopelessness sometimes, but then radically it's like you kind of wake up and you're realizing that, like, wait a second, if I don't like this, I have the power to change it. Now, I might not be able to do everything on my own or change the whole world by myself, but I'm not meant to do that. Nobody is meant to do that. We need community to do that. But at the same time, I still have free will. I still have agency, and I still have the ability to choose what I participate in and what I don't. And so I really feel the sense of you guys pulling yourself out of situations in which you feel like there's a lack of solid leadership or guidance. And you're like, if there's not someone that's going to, lead us to the right place, then I guess that maybe I need to do something. And so I feel like there's this kind of new generation of people, or I don't know, this can always happen with eclipse seasons, is that people who are kind of in the spotlight can suddenly disappear versus people who have been in the shadows can suddenly rise to power or become more visible. And so there's that passing of the baton, changing of the guards that's happening at this time. And I feel like this process is not just like one and done right now, but the spark is certainly being ignited. And you guys are being filled with a lot of inspiration to be the change that you seek, and not just sit around and complain about things or kind of be like, I don't want to participate in this, but then you don't participate in anything else. It's like, okay, well, I don't like this kind of existence, but I can't check out, right? I have to stay active. I have to stay engaged. And yeah, like, I'm not going to take on this kind of victim mentality anymore. Because I feel like you guys have been tested lately too with this idea that, like, well, nothing I do really matters. Like, no one pays attention anyways. But like, that's what I was trying to say in the beginning of the video, is that people are feeling your energy more than you realize. And I feel like it's this thing that happens where it's almost like the collective consciousness has to remember you before you gain traction. So like, for example, if you're trying, like me, if your goal is to make music for the masses to hear, it's almost like the way that starts is not just by like putting out your first single and expecting that it's going to go viral on TikTok and that everyone's going to listen, but rather it's about really building your arc. I heard your artist arc, or if you do something different, it can relate to that. But building that arc one brick at a time. Some days people are gonna forget about you, but over time people always kind of remember, because even if they're not always up your ass every 2 seconds and paying attention to everything you're doing, it's like there's this moment right now in the collective where you're appearing in people's minds and they're like, whatever happened to her? Like, is she still going with this? And I feel like in that, it's like there are more people rooting for you than you realize. There are more people who want to see your success than you realize. And I feel like in this old paradigm, you've gotten so used to the hater narrative. The stories about the haters and, oh, this person said this about me and this person talked shit here, and you've gotten so used to like being a lone wolf at times that you forgot about the pack that is there for you and that does want to see you win. And so it still does require a lot of courage for you to continue on this path. But I feel like that courage is going to come more easily when you have this kind of shift in thinking of like, people want to see me be bold. People want to see me live out my truth, whether or not they even consciously realize that, because that living out your truth can only help guide others to the light, because it's truth. And I feel like we are in a very transitional time collectively over this next year, where we're just going to keep seeing this fact of truth transcending illusion. And no matter how many shadows are cast and how many smoke and mirrors are set up in the fun house, there's just something about it that people are not buying anymore. They're waking up and they're realizing that it doesn't matter if you keep doing all this. I know that you're doing this over here. And I feel like the only logical solution right now is to come together. Come together right now over me. Come together over me. So it's not about, again, it's not like in the past where like you would come together with a group of people and maybe it was very group think oriented. So if you didn't think exactly like everyone else, it would almost be like, bye. But now it feels like this diversity of thought and perspective is something that is opening for the collective. And it's actually really being asked of us right now to have the courage to face our differences and to not like feel like it's an attack when someone shares a different belief, because those differing beliefs are going to help us to arrive to the truth versus if we all believed the same exact thing. Having a little bit of this healthy debate is something that will increase our understanding, provided that we are mature enough to hold that with integrity and to not take low blows and say things that are attacking another person. We can attack their opinions and their arguments, but attacking each other and pointing the finger at one another, it's just not going to fly. You know, we need more unity consciousness right now more than ever. And I really feel like the last full moon in Aquarius was speaking on that. And I feel like the full moon in Pisces is also going to have a message about that. But it's going to be even more of a metaphysical feeling of like, whether or not you make the time for other people and whether or not you invest in community, you are always part of the community of the collective consciousness, honey. So every single thought that you have, it contributes to your reality that you see, as well as even the reality of other people. And so that's why psychology is such a powerful tool, because when you are able to manipulate the psychology of other people, like I think about cult leaders or politicians who do this, or puppeteers, you are able to control the masses once you can start controlling the thinking and the psychology. And this past full moon in Aquarius, I think, made it very evident to me that we have to reprogram the entire system if we're ever going to find ourselves in a better place. And I think a lot of people are willing to do that. And if this message found you, I think you're more than ready and willing. And when it applies to your own individual life, you see this too. It's not just about society and the way things are set up. You also realize that the way that you were conditioned growing up, you have to rewrite the whole code. You have to rewrite the whole script. Okay? And that's what I think feels a little bit overwhelming at this time, is that we know that everything is going to look different. In fact, everything has already started to change. And yet, it kind of feels like, okay, I've wanted this change for so long, but I had no idea that it was going to be under these circumstances and that it was going to look like this. But instead of like being resistant, confirmation burp, instead of resisting that, it's like there's this open-mindedness I feel like we've been sitting in since the last full moon. And this new moon eclipse that we just had yesterday, it's helping us to open more by making space. So saying, I don't resonate with that person that I once was, or I don't resonate with these people that I used to hang out with. It doesn't mean I send hate, right? We're all made in God's image. We all can still love each other. But I just feel like you also recognize the boundaries that are needed to clear this space out so that you can truly step into this heart chakra expansion kind of moment and hold the love that you have for yourself, for the planet, for God, for each other. There's something really beautiful coming in right now. As much as there's this like quiet fear of like, where is this leading? You know? And I think right now, God is asking you to surrender to the present moment and not try to squint into the future and see exactly how this is all going to play out, because I also get the sense that things are not yet set in stone. They depend on what we decide and our free will. And this Leo energy reminds us of that power that we have to either stand in our truth or to abandon ourselves. And it's like the more that we choose that path of truth and authenticity and living out loud, not in an obnoxious way, but with humility as well as confidence, the more that things just kind of naturally click into place, so we don't have to try so hard to try to squint at, oh, what's this going to look like and it's going to be? Because whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. But whoever you are is the key. So stand by that. There's so much more I have about this time that we're in. So we're going to keep diving into it. And I feel like it's going to take a little bit of time to really get these messages out in a way where it's like, okay, there's a cohesive thread line forming here. Because again, there's still a lot more to this that we haven't arrived at yet. So please be patient with me as I try to download and interpret what's going on. I don't want to say it's a heavy time, but it's an intense time. So I think like all of us, I'm trying to just navigate this, and I'm navigating it in the ways that I know how, but some of those old ways that I know how to navigate it are being dismantled, and I'm having to find new ways. So I think we're all a little bit at a learning curve right now in the collective. So the more gracious we can be with each other and empathetic, I think the better. Of course, with boundaries, always with boundaries. But that's the gist of it. And I'm wishing everyone just a lot of fulfillment, a lot of joy, and a lot of pleasure as we enjoy these last few weeks of the summer season up here in the Northern Hemisphere. And I think next time we'll probably dive more into the nodes going into Leo and Aquarius. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. So I don't think we'll be at a shortage of topics to discuss. All right. Talk to you guys later.